Perfect. You can go ahead, please.
Hi, good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Are we live?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. Hi, everyone. Good evening. You're welcome to the 5th webinar of the Scholarship Bootcamp. It's been a beautiful journey. And tonight we're having an amazing scholar who's going to be sharing from his wealth of experience. We have Mr. Friday Otsuya on this call, right? And it will be talking about how to secure research assistant positions in the United States. So while I go straight into reading his bio and introducing him to you, I would love for us to use our emojis, right? To tell him welcome. Let's write welcome. Let's tell him. So I am watching the chart to be sure that we have those responses while I read his bio. All right, so Mr. Friday Otsuya is a communications and development. I'm sorry, let me include that again. Mr. Friday Otsuya is a communications and development professional with over 11 years of experience driving change across journalism, media management, international affairs, and digital transformation. A graduate of mass communication from the University of Benin, Nigeria, he was a recipient of the prestigious 𝐒𝐿𝐄𝐄𝐈𝐀𝐃 Award for Global Leaders. He also won a research assistant position at the University of Wyoming, UW, in the United States. At UW, he was awarded various grants and scholarships to carry out research and leadership initiatives in the US. He currently serves as the Community Engagement Specialist of 𝐒𝐥, a leading technology company in Kansas, USA. In this role, Friday collaborates with leaders to promote economic development, and he administers loans and grants to access rural communities. He also influences local, state, and federal government officials in order to support rural communities in Kansas. Friday actively contributes to NGOs and professional associations in the United States, including Rotary International, the National Rural Economic Developers Association, NREDA, Western Kansas Rural Economic Development Alliance, WKRADA, the International Economic Development Council, IEDC, and others. I believe that we are excited to hear from such an amazing scholar. Hi, Mr. Friday. Good afternoon to you. And guys, our scholar is, like, for those of us who are in the West African time zone, is like 7 hours behind us. Is it? Yeah, 7 hours. So this is the afternoon for him. So we know this is a huge sacrifice, right? I was so excited to have you be here with us, sir. Hello. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you, Faith.
Okay, you're welcome. Good afternoon to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity. Thank you to the Plasonix team. Thank you to Victory. Thank you to Michael and the others. Thank you to Manuela, Babawale, and the others who contributed to making this happen. How do I unpack probably my introduction right now? I remember how my own journey started from I'll probably say from Warri. That's where the journey started from. And the changes and evolution and, I say intersections that I had to deal with and navigations I had to deal with in the course of my career. When I look back today, it's just I feel like crying sometimes because it felt like the most impossible thing, but today it's very possible. And I say this because what, Victory and the team is, sharing with lots of folks from Nigeria is actually what took us many, many years to figure out. It took us many years of sleepless nights, sleepless days, juggling work and family and Nigerian issues and taking care of younger ones and faith and everything, just trying to make it work. And today we were able to find ourselves in a position of success. And we're now privileged to be able to pass on some of these insights to folks who are coming, from Africa also. So it's very, very fulfilling for me, very, very interesting for me. And I'm really happy to be here. So Faith, feel free to interrupt me if you need to say something, but I'm just going to go into my own personal background, if that's okay. All right, so I'm going to talk a bit about myself, my background. Or before I do that, let me share my screen so that can keep us relatively engaged with a few things while I talk. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Okay, just a minute. Share screen. Okay, do this. Share. All right, just let me know if you can see my screen or my slide or something. Let's see. Let me make this big.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Great. Second on this. Let me do a slideshow. All right. I guess probably I would continue the way it is right now, and then we'll see how it goes. So essentially, who is Friday Otuya, and who is this guy, and how did he develop to become the person he is today? I was born in Warri, Nigeria. I I don't know if there are any folks from Warri here who know about Warri, but I was born in 𝐾𝐍𝐍𝐬𝐿 Road, along 𝐾𝐍𝐬𝐬 Road, one of those compounds there. That's where I was born. My family moved around that area the first probably 10 years of my life, 10, 15 years of my life. But that was essentially where I was born and raised. I grew up like every Nigerian child, going to a
Thank
normal
you. Go
Nigerian
ahead.
school. Can you hear me?
Sorry, please go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So I grew up like every normal Nigerian child, going to a normal Nigerian school, dealing with, you think of every normal Nigerian issue that every normal young person would face. I went through it. I experienced it. I was a normal random young person until probably when I was in I think it was primary school. I'm trying to remember my terms. In the US, it's called elementary school or K through 12. In Nigeria, it's called primary and secondary school. But when I was in primary school, that was when I started showing some sparks of quote unquote brilliance here and there. I wasn't a studious type. I was never the studious type. I would just go to class, play around, and I would show sparks of brilliance here and there. I went to secondary school, and truth be told, I just started playing away. I just forgot myself. Let's have fun in school. Let's relax our nerves. The future is still very far away. Let's just relax our nerves and stuff. And it was probably when I was getting close to wrapping up my secondary education, around 2008-ish. That was when the reality of life started dawning on me. And I'm laying this foundation first because no one can explain, but no one can push you into this. It has to be something you want for yourself. And so I was about to wrap up secondary school. I started asking myself, Friday, what would you do in life? That was the first time I started thinking, what would you do in life? What would you, when you become a 30-year-old or a 35-year-old, what would you be doing? And I was terrified. I was scared. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. My parents have taken care of me since I was a boy up until now. Now I'm tasked with becoming a man. I did not want to face that reality. But it was something that a decision I had to make sooner or later. I was going to leave secondary school soon. I was like SS2 or thereabout. And so I started thinking, what do I do? What do I do? And That was the first time I started reflecting on my skills, my abilities, what I loved to do. And two things came to mind at that point. I said, you know what? I think I like literature. I like social studies. I like a little bit of economics. I hated math. Um, I like English a little bit. Maybe I can do mass communication. I can talk on radio, talk on TV. I can do it. It felt cool to me. And then I had another backup sort of career. It's like, you know what? Public administration doesn't sound bad. The politicians in Nigeria, the guys who, well, they get all the spotlight. They're always doing good, commissioning a project or doing something for the community. And public administration or political science felt like something I would really succeed in. And so I had these two career paths or three career paths: mass communication, public administration, or political science. And it was around that time when I was wrapping up secondary school, SS2 to SS3, I faced some challenges personally. My dad had an accident, my mom fell sick. Things became very rough for my family. And so that was the first time in my life growing up where I literally sank into poverty. To eat was a huge challenge. I mean, to get the first meal of the day was a huge problem. To figure out where to stay and rest my head was a huge challenge. I was living with friends and, crashing here and there, all the while trying to figure out my career, trying to figure out my WAEC, trying to figure out JAMB and all of those experiences. It was tough, but that was the first time where I had to tell myself, Friday, it's you and you alone. You have to take responsibility. You have to take your life into your own hands. No one is coming to help you. No one is going to quit everything you're doing to just try to pick you up and get you on your feet. You have to do this by yourself. And so that was the beginning of my journey. And that was the exact season I met a group called FECA, 2011. I met FECA Warrior. I'm not going to go into all of my experiences with FECA, but that was the season of my life where I started learning about what it means to make an impact, make a difference. I started learning that I'm called or I'm born not to just exist and not just to survive and not just to live all my life in the slums where I found myself, but I was called to actually make a difference in the world. I was called to make an impact. This was not something someone sat me down to talk to me about and advise me on that Friday, you know what, you're called to make an impact. No, everything around me told me the opposite. You're barely surviving, young man. You're barely able to put food on your table. Who's going to pay for your tuition if you even go to university? Who's going to pay for your living expenses? How are you going to be able to focus and take in all these courses and graduate? It was a huge obstacle. In fact, there was a day my mom called me and sat me down, and my mom loves me so much, but she said, Friday, this endeavor or this thing you want to do, look at dad, look at myself. We don't have the means, we don't have the money to finance this. We can't do this. My recommendation to you, this was her to me, is to learn a trade, learn a craft so you can take care of yourself and pay your own bills, because we're barely able to take care of your older brother and support him, not to talk about another young person again going to university. I cried, I shed tears, but that made me determined to be outstanding, because I knew this is the foundation right now. My parents could not afford my education. My parents can't afford it. My family is not wealthy. They can't pay for this education. So I have to be above average. I have to be very, very good at what I did in order to be attractive to people who will be able to say, you know what, I want to support your pursuits. I want to assist you in doing what you want to do. That was the first time, 2011. That was when I started thinking about who I was going to become. And so I persevered, worked hard, worked various menial work. I normally tell folks I have a scar on my hand. It was when I was washing cars in Warri, the Central Motor Park in Warri. If you go to Central Motor Park, Warri, right now, I think today, and go ask folks about Friday. I'm sure they will remember me actually. If you say, do you guys know anyone called Friday as a young man who was washing cars here, 2011 to 2013? They would remember actually. Um, so, but I persevered. I kept working hard. I got to University of Benin. I poured my heart and opened my heart to knowledge. I literally told myself, Friday, this is a pathway for you to not just make an impact, but to actually survive as a human being. And so I learned as much as I can. I learned things that were not related to my studies. I learned a lot of things that were not connected to mass communication. I went to study mass communication, by the way, but I learned things that were unrelated to my immediate studies. So my mind I became well exposed to a bunch of things, a bunch of fields and industries beyond the confines of my degree. I'm sharing all this because that's what has created the platform for me to succeed in America. Because what I'm doing today is not mass communication. What I'm doing today is not core international relations or international studies. What I'm doing today, I'm leveraging a bunch of insights and experiences and perspectives I've gained from Warri to Benin to Lagos and to America. And I'm using that to create change in America. So if I need to expedite because of time, please let me know, but I'm just going to continue. So I went through college, went through University of Benin, worked hard, studied hard, graduated. It was tough, it was rough, it was difficult. I went hungry, you know, I worked throughout my time in college, so no one was giving me free lunch every day. I had to work. I was tutoring folks. Um, I volunteered on campus. I did a little bit of student government. I did campus fellowship. I did on-campus tutoring. I did everything basically every young person who's aspirational would want to do. I asked questions. In fact, all of my colleagues and my classmates, I can still remember their faces right now. If you go ask them, tell me about Friday, they're going to tell you there's this stubborn guy that talks too much, that asks questions all the time, that never relents, that probes professors to want to figure out the end of every concept in class. I intentionally wanted to become so good at what I did that wherever any mass communication graduate or professional was speaking, I was confident enough to speak on that basis. And so that was my approach. When I left college, when I left university, I was lucky enough because I know Nigeria, you have all kinds of systems where people try to do things, but I never walked my NYSC. I never called anyone or spoke to anyone. I just went online one day and I discovered that I'd been posted to Lagos. Oh, Lagos. Okay, great. I surprised. I went to college. I was from Delta State, went to school at the University of Benin, got posted to Lagos for my NYSC. So maybe that worked out. I don't know. But I arrived in Lagos full of high hopes and expectation. I wanted to make a difference. I got the first posting somewhere in Lagos, and when I got to the place and I found the work vibe, I knew this was where aspiration came to die. That if I stayed there, I would become another corporate person trying to survive instead of being someone who was a change maker. So I was very intentional in terms of how my career and my life was going to play out. I was choosy, I was picky. I didn't just accept where I was posted to say, you know what, this is where life has brought me. I'm going to accept it and call it a day. So I changed my posting about 1 or 2 times, saying, no, this didn't work out for me. I wanted to do something else. And I got posted to a journalism firm that aligned with my aspirations called Transatlantic Media Company. They produced a program called Digivation Network on African Independent Television in Lagos. And so I got there, I'm like, this is what I've been prepared for. Just to backtrack a little bit, folks would ask me, how come you can speak the way you can speak and you have this little accent and stuff? I intentionally developed this. I would pick up newspapers, I would pick up online articles and literally read aloud, practice my enunciation and speaking for hours at a time. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, 2 hours in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon, 2 hours in the evening. In fact, if you call some of my siblings, I think my sisters, Patience or Faith, and say, you remember when Friday would pick up a paper and we'll be reading at the backyard, just reading and practicing. He said, I remember that was when I was practicing how to present myself. I could smell that if I could continue to develop myself, opportunity when the right opportunity comes, I would just hit it out of the park. So I consciously developed myself how to speak, how to write, how to think about global issues. I learned a lot about the international system. Again, this has nothing to do with my degree. This had nothing to do with what I was studying in school. This was just a love for knowledge, a love for education, a love to make an impact in the world, a passion to leave a legacy that was positive for humanity. And so when I got to Lagos, I just did a bunch of journalism work. I got hugely recognized for my work, reporting on TV. In fact, there was a day my aunt saw me on TV and was like, Friday, this because I was this random guy again. There was nothing special about me outwardly. And then you turn on your TV, you see me presenting, like, oh, really? I never knew you could do this. I'm like, yes, I could, because I practiced and I developed myself in Warri, in Benin, at Kenwa campus, precisely at the University of Benin, where I studied. I practiced some of these skills. And so when the opportunity came, I just did well. After a while in journalism, I branched off into corporate communications, did corporate communications for a while. I volunteered with the missions agency that took me outside Nigeria for the first time. I went to Kenya, went to the Central African Republic, went to Ghana, went to Togo. I did humanitarian missions work. I'm driven by impact, so this work came natural. I was working in 2020. I was doing my normal corporate communications work for a firm called EPL Partners Limited in Lagos, where my wonderful friend Michael came to visit. It wasn't really my friend at the time. I mean, I knew Michael. Everyone knows Michael, but it wasn't really my bosom kind of guy or something. But he came to see me in Lagos, and he was doing the paperwork for his Commonwealth scholarship. He just got awarded, and we got talking. I think. And that was when he exposed me to the fact that, Friday, with your background and experience and your passion, you could actually apply to opportunities in the Western world. And I'm like, really? I never really thought. I was thinking of applying to the University of Lagos, my master's degree. I never really thought I had the means to pay for anything outside Nigeria. Again, I'm not from a wealthy background. I was in fact, I was taking care of myself in Lagos, supporting my siblings, supporting my parents. So I didn't have the bandwidth to think of trying to go to America or the UK or something. But Michael told me I could do it. That, Friday, you don't have to pay for it; they would pay for it. And it felt like the most crazy thing in the world. Why would anyone pay me to come study? you know. But he showed me a few things, and he exposed me to a few things. And this is where what I've been talking about came into play. The things Michael shared with me wasn't a secret per se. I'm sure you have told a bunch of people this thing, several people. What made the difference was I prepared myself for several years up until 2020 to take advantage of opportunities. So I share my background and share my story because nothing just happens sometimes. I didn't just get this job at Next Tech because they just liked my face. I didn't just find myself in America because it was just luck alone. I had laid the groundwork, you know, and I tell myself where I'm going to see myself in 10 years' time. I'm not going to be shocked because there's some things incrementally you do over time that naturally shows when the fullness of time comes. And so when Mike shared some things with me, I'm like, okay, I sat down in my room in Lagos, pulled up, opened the spreadsheet, opened Word document, started preparing my application. I was a natural writer, so expressing my ideas came naturally to me. And so I was able to look at my experience, journalism, humanitarian work, corporate communications, my leadership experiences on campus, leading a campus fellowship, doing student government on campus, tutoring, working while going to school, graduating with a 2-1 in a very competitive department. Anyone who graduated 2-1 from my department, congratulations to you. That is, you did everything you're meant to do. But I combined all of these insights and experiences, and I was able to connect that to certain opportunities in the Western world that I saw. And I'm going to go into the specifics soon. But I share my background not because I just have to, but because that was the foundation for my success. I applied to a bunch of scholarships, got to admitted to a bunch of schools in the UK, applied for the UK Chieftain Scholarship. I worked on my essays day in, day out, brushed up on a few things. I started thinking of myself. I know we're from a country where people are urged to be humble and to be not to be proud and to lower your expectation. But I learned to be comfortable with my achievement, to say I'd made an impact in 3, 4, 5 countries. I had transformed dysfunctional systems. I'd created impact. I became comfortable with myself because looked at my background closely and looked at my experiences. I applied to the UK Chieftain Award in 2021, August, September, thereabout. I was shortlisted for an interview. When I knew I was going to win the award was when I saw the first, I think I saw the shortlist, the first, I think it was 100 or thereabout folks that were shortlisted. I thought I saw the background of everyone who was shortlisted. I'm like, I'm going to win this award because the reason I knew I was going to do it was because my experience was unique. No one had the range of experiences. No one was trying to do what I was trying to do. I wasn't trying to copy what someone else had done before. I was trying to do something that was extremely niche, extremely unique, that fits someone with my specific background, if you had a different, if you studied another course, it wouldn't make any sense anymore. If you attempted to go to another school, it's not going to make any sense anymore. So as soon as I saw that, I prepared for my interview, went to the British consulate, had my interview there. One of several interviews I've had in my lifetime, and it was all positive. I got shortlisted for the award. And then I think it was around that season, my friend also in the US, I've forgotten his name. What's his name again? It's been a while I talked to him. He was like, Friday, you've gotten this award. Have you tried students in the US? The US could actually make a lot of sense for you. And I'm like, really? I'm like, okay, let me just try. I went online. I'm going to show you a few of the tools I used again so you guys can see the practice of how I did many of these things. Went online again, did some research again, leveraging my background in journalism. I was a journalist. I knew how to dig for information and sift through data and figure out what I wanted. I found a couple of schools, applied to the first school, the University of Wyoming, saw a few of the things they were asking for them. Like, this is my turf, this is my forte. Applied instantly, less than a month later, got admitted, got the scholarship, and I'm like, whoa, opportunities are just coming left, right, and center. What's happening? But again, it's the foundation. It wasn't just because I was applying. I had done some things that set me up for this without me knowing. And so I had to think through a few things, think very strategically, think very tactically, think of what I wanted to do, the kind of impact I wanted to have, the kind of person I wanted to become, where I saw myself 20, 30 years from now. And I made a decision to accept the UK award, the US award rather, the Graduate Assistantship Award. About 4-5 months later, 3-4 months later, I found myself going to the embassy, applying for my visa, getting that stamped. A month later, I find myself flying to Chicago, landed. So it's fun, it's sweet. This is the sweet part. It's sweet when you finally come to a new country, start building a new life, learning new skills, connecting with new people, leveraging your experience to do cool stuff. So that's the fun part. Because of time, I'm going to delve into the tactics I leveraged, the specifics, what I did. And I would urge you to take notes if you have, or watch this later, because these are things that, again, took me years and months of hard trying to figure this out. How does this work? What is the expectation of these people? How do I break through this system? How do I position myself as a leader and cause these people to respect my work and see the impact I've had and give me that scholarship I want? So I'm going to go ahead and share that. So this is the first slide, how to secure research assistant positions in the United States. You've heard about my story, my background, how I was able to do all of the things I did in Nigeria and, navigate myself here to the US. Next slide. I talked about most of this, but just a summary. I was born and raised in Warri, Delta State. That was where I lived all my life. I left Warri when I was 18. So folks would be like, oh, you don't talk like someone from Warri, and you don't behave. I'm like, because of how I subjected my mind, what I subjected my mind to, there was a point, in fact, it was around 2014, 2015. My mind was literally in the UK. I was living in Benin City, but my mind had left Nigeria already. I was already thinking about issues as like how the British leaders would think about issues. Not because, again, I had a class on it, but because I leveraged the internet, I leveraged resources. I was listening to the BBC, like the BBC was my life, essentially, morning, afternoon, evening, listening to the BBC. But anyway, born and raised in Warri, Delta State, Nigeria. Studied mass communication at the University of Benin. I lived and worked in Lagos for 5 years. I'm currently based in a small town in the western part of Kansas called Hays, Kansas. And again, I'm going to talk about why I'm living in this city, why I'm doing this work I'm currently doing. So it kind of makes sense to folks because Hays, Kansas is not the place naturally Nigerians come to when they come to America. They go to New York or LA or DC or any of the big cities. But there are reasons for that. I'm married. I have 2 handsome boys, so they keep my life pretty fulfilled. So this is my personal background. My professional background is also summarized here. 10 years post-university experience. I've done broadcast journalism. For those who are in Nigeria, if you know Radio Nigeria, I was an intern at Radio Nigeria in Benin City 2014. I did broadcast journalism on campus at the University of Benin. If you go to the University of Benin radio station, anyone wants to go verify or something, verify when the radio station was started and the first set of student journalists. I was one of the first set of students presenters on radio, so I sharpened some of my presentation skills there too. Higher education, so I've tutored students on campus. I I understand how higher education works. In the city I live in, they call it, there's a university called �𝐿𝐻𝐒 State University. Occasionally, professors would invite me to talk about my background and experiences and give some of the students some insights. And I've done humanitarian work, whether that's organizing outreaches, organizing humanitarian interventions, facilitating resources from Nigeria to other parts of the world. I also did some HR work for tech recruiting, basically, for a while in Lagos. And then economic development and broadband deployment and business development. These are the core things I do right now for NextTech, helping the company to use what I call soft power. There's hard power and there's soft power. Use soft power to drive growth, drive business development, to stimulate economic activities in the places we serve as a business, and deploy broadband technology to help farmers, students, schools to really leverage connectivity and do good stuff in life. So that's what I do currently at the moment. I've worked across some of those countries you can see there. And I mention some of these countries because as someone who is trying to apply for opportunities in the Western world, if you're able to demonstrate that you have experiences beyond your country of origin, that's a huge plus, because most Americans have never left America. Hope you know, most Americans have never left America. They've lived here all of their lives. So when you tell them I've worked in, not manipulating fact, but factually you've worked in different countries, or you have experience working with professionals from different countries, that's a huge plus for you as a professional. Won the Chieftain Award in 2022, didn't proceed to the UK for obvious reasons. I've talked about that. I call myself a change maker because I looked at a bunch of the things I've done, journalism and the work, and I say, you know, my work, what's the easy way to explain my work to a lay person or someone who's an engineer or a lawyer or a banker that kind of makes sense? You can call yourself an economic development professional, a journalist, but I think change maker is really what encompasses the work I've done. And then I'm largely self-taught. I say largely self-taught because I have a fresh degree. I went to secondary school, university, you know, master's degree. But the key thing that has made the difference in terms of the outcome of my life is how I've gone the extra mile to teach myself stuff. So I say to myself that barring the degrees, I will still be able to achieve these outcomes because of the knowledge I have. Like, it's not the degree that has made me per se, it's what I've done with the degree that has made me. So that's kind of important, particularly for those who are into the social sciences or the humanities. It's very critical because you're always in an industry where it's kind of nuanced in terms of professional background. Only a licensed engineer can construct a building, for example. Only a licensed doctor can carry out an operation. But if you want to become a public leader, you don't have to have one pigeonholed background. A bunch of backgrounds can do that kind of work. So largely self-taught. And I added a few pictures here because the pictures kind of summarizes to a large extent the kind of work I found myself doing. The first picture, the picture of the U.S. Senator Jerry Moran. I call him a friend at this point in time because he's no longer just a senator. He's now my friend, someone I can see as a function and walk up to him and say, "Hey, Jerry, how you doing? How's work been?" And he's a senator. He's a senator of the United States of America. I know what in Nigeria, the idea of a senator is very different. They have security all around you. They're very high up there and you're low up here. In America, it's very different. Leaders are down to earth. You can engage them intellectually. You can ask them questions. Again, don't look at what you watch in the news. The news is very over exaggerated. Jerry Moran, leaders like Jerry Moran and the others, I interact with them almost on a monthly basis. Whether that's senators, congressional folks, leaders of communities, mayors, I interact with them and try to advance the work I do for my company. And then loans and grants. You know, the next picture is me and two men. You know, my company, we loaned them about $100,000, a small loan for a business. And so I was there to just administer the loan. So I work with small businesses to administer resources. And then I do what I represent my company. I love presenting and talking about the good things my company does in the community. And so this is just one of the speaking engagements I undertake. I undertake one of these like maybe once every 6 months or thereabout, where I will present about my company and what we're doing. And by so doing, I elevate the reputation of my company. Again, tying this back to my background, I'm going to talk about the specifics of how I got many of these opportunities, but I would not be able to do this. The things I do presenting on behalf of my company, is not because of my degrees, because I'm able to work from an interdisciplinary perspective and make things happen. That's why I'm able to do all of these things. Okay, then I'm now going to get into some of the specifics. Again, Victory or Faith, feel free to interrupt me if there are questions I need to deal with, but these are the specifics of the day, finding research assistant positions. Now, I can give you a theory, or let me talk about the pictures. But this is Washington, D.C. After 5 months in Wyoming, or learning Wyoming, I became kind of bored. So I booked a trip, flew to DC, New York, DC, and Boston just to go experience these cities for myself. So I went to DC, toured a bunch of places, and it was really fun for someone who grew up in Warri, you know, walking into the, see these historic places I'd read about, going to the, the Statue of Liberty, going to the Lincoln Memorial, where Abraham Lincoln talked about the dignity of all men, going to Congress and, walking around the world, the halls of Congress, the most powerful building in the in the history of the world, actually. There's never been any government that has been as powerful as the US government. So they have a global, influence. We've never seen anything like this in the history of the world. And so just experiencing these perspectives, going to also places like Boston, visiting Harvard, and just getting a sense of this prestigious university, what it takes to study there and things like that. So it was fun for me. But finding research assistant positions, what does that entail? Firstly, what's a research assistant position? The first thing I want to emphasize here is the fact that if you don't love academics and you don't love book work and you don't love knowledge, you may not fit in well with a research assistant position. If your aim is to, I just want to get this opportunity and leave Nigeria as quickly as I can and go do anything I like in the Western world, this is not going to be for you because you will not be suitable for this kind of opportunities. A research assistant is essentially, or a teaching assistant is someone who assists the professor in doing their core work, whether that's research, whether that's tutelage or teaching students. You're essentially an assistant. You're leveraging your background, your experiences, your competences, and you're funneling that to help a professor do their work. So in my time, I volunteered. I was a research assistant and a teacher assistant also for Professor Yilin Chen. That's her name. She's from Taiwan, and her core work focused on cities, how cities work, how cities impact groups and people. And so my background, coming from the biggest city in Africa, Lagos, working across cities, Warri, Benin, Lagos, Lome, Togo, Nairobi, Kenya, Amsterdam, Netherlands, made sense for me to support that professor with that work because I'd lived in global cities before. So your background, your experiences must, not really must, but it makes sense if it's connected to the research sort of position or the teaching position you're kind of seeking for. So I'm going to make this practical. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you a few things, you guys, a few things. So let me show you exactly what I did. Let me drag this down. This. Good. Bring this down. So this is your best tool. Your best tool when applying or seeking for opportunities like this is can you see my screen? Can you guys still see my screen?
Yes.
Can you see the blank? Can you see this Google screen or something? Good. So this is your best tool. Your best tool is the internet. How do you find research assistant sort of position or identify them? The first thing you need to do is to let me probably backtrack because the research assistant positions, if you go for them, you have to be a student first. So let me start from you being a student, and I can talk about the research assistant position because if you start going for the research assistant and stuff, and you're not a student, it doesn't make any sense. So let me go back a little bit. So finding a research assistant position, you can do that, but let's start from who you are, identifying the kind of course you want it to be. For myself, I'm going to share my screen a little bit. So this is my LinkedIn and my background. My first degree was in mass communication. You guys can see my screen, right?
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. I wanted to point out that we have 20 minutes left for your session.
Okay. So I'm gonna expedite. But essentially, my background is in mass communication. And so I'd done some work around Africa, humanitarian work, journalism. And so I intentionally was looking for a college or a university that offered something related to journalism, international relations, or social impact kind of work. And so when I started researching, I wasn't looking for law or engineering or anything like that. This was one of the platforms I used, and I'm going to share it. UniRank, World University Search Engine, unirank.org. Or if you also type 4icu.org on Google, it's going to give you the page. And so you can come here to search. This is the World University Search Engine. And you can come here and just put, let's say, international business, for example. International business, that's what you're kind of interested in. And search. And then you can sort. Let me see. No, I think you can search international business in the United States of America. So I think top universities, top 200 universities in North America. And then you probably they've sort of changed a few things, but you kind of search essentially. So you come here, you search for what's related to your background and what's related to your field. And then you begin to identify universities. For myself, I identify the University of Wyoming, Brown Day University, Purdue University, University of Notre Dame or Notre Dame University, and a few others. So specific universities could be MIT or Harvard or Stanford or whichever. Once you've identified, you then go to their departmental website. Let's just say Cornell, for example, Cornell University. You go to their departmental website. Cornell, and then you go to academics, field of study. You come down to international, let's see, College of Arts and Sciences, College of Arts and Global and Public Health, Global Development, for example. I'm using my own background as an example. So global development, I click on global development. And this can be for any school. So you can see global development major. Okay, this is what it entails. Okay, good. Bachelor of Science. Do they have a master's degree? I'm not sure they have a master's degree, but this is the page for global development. What do you do next? You go straight to admission requirements. You want to see if you can be admitted first. You look at the admission requirements. You go straight to scholarship opportunities. Once you know that you can meet the requirements, you go straight to scholarship opportunities. If you can't find it on the page, the school typically would have more global development. They would typically have a page for scholarship, research, education. I think it's probably typically admissions. Close to admissions, they find scholarship opportunities there. Grant admissions, financial support. You click on financial support, you then see tuition and grant admission, tuition and financial aid support, and then you begin to research and that's how I found my scholarship. Basically, I went to the school that had my course that was related, that I was interested in. I went from there straight to the departmental website, which was the University of Wyoming. I could probably just go there. And then I went to the scholarship page straight to just go figure out what they offered. And I was able to find that, yes, they offer my course of study, and then they offer a scholarship. Then I added the school to a bucket. So this is my departmental website, for example, cost and financial aid. You can just figure, go to the page and figure out, what they have there, what opportunities they have for funding. Because ultimately, you can't, most people with my background, they are not really able to pay for their course of study on their own. Explore financial aid, or you can even go to scholarships. Go forward a little bit. Scholarships, I saw something. Scholarships at UW. Scholarship information for international students. Scholarship by students of international students. You can then click on that and see explore scholarships. Cost of attendance, quick start navigation, international scholarships, renew your financial aid. So essentially, this is how you find some of these opportunities. You identify your universities, first of all, by searching platforms like 4icu, UniRank, searching for your course of study so you can identify all the universities that offer your course of study, and then you delve in specifically to each one to begin to research and find things out. Then you start applying to research assistant positions. One of the things I did was I had a research area. So international development, journalism, media, that's my research area. I developed my personal statement already. These are things you should have done already. And so I went to the website like this too, and I'll go to faculty, just go look for faculty. Go back a little bit, spice, go to faculty, then see, international studies. Faculty is typically somewhere hidden. Faculty and staff, good. You go to faculty and staff, you look at the faculty, look at their research area. Let's see. So that's some of my professors anyway. But you look at their research area and then you begin to tailor your background. This professor is into X, X, and X. Let me say Stephanie Anderson, my professor, for example. She's into international. Look at her research work and say, how does my personal statement, my background fit into some of these things? It doesn't have to be every single thing, just one thing that she does. Once you've identified European integration or stuff, that's what you email her about and say, hello, Professor, I saw your background on this page. You linked the page. I saw you're interested in this. My background is in this and this, and I would like to explore your interest in this and this area. And then you email them. 9 out of 10 times they respond positively to emails, and they respond positively. Say, okay, that can work. Other times, what I did in some of the schools, I didn't even email the professor. I saw their research area. I tied their research area to my background, and I inserted that connection to my personal statement, and I applied. So that's essentially how to find some of these positions. Preparing for work on campus, because of time, I may not delve into all the details, but you have to, the position, research assistant position is a work position. So you're assisting a professor, you're supporting their research and helping them to do their work. And so you must have good work ethic, timeliness, for example. You must be professional. You must be confident because you're talking to, I know you're from Africa, or we're from Africa and stuff, but most of the students you're going to be teaching are all Caucasians who grew up in the Western world. They had their education in the Western world. They are very smart people. They're very intelligent. So you have to be confident in yourself to be able to tutor them and tell them things about the course. So you must be able to, again, read wide, understand the course so that you can tutor someone else about the course. And then you have your own schoolwork to do, balancing that with your own studying and your own coursework because you have to graduate ultimately. So these are the key things I think you need to consider, before even applying to a research assistant position. But if you've done the groundwork, it's not going to be too hard. Once you've identified the school, identified the scholarship opportunity or the kind of research assistant opportunities they have, just apply and it should be straightforward from there. Lastly, Victor, I have like 5 minutes, right? Or 10 minutes, right?
We still have about 15 minutes.
15 minutes, great. Okay, so tips. I wanted to share some tips, that I think would help anyone. This was when I went to Georgetown, another university here in the US, to visit. Specify your course of study. That's really key because that's what gives you your sense of direction. I could give someone all the information I had. I could share my essays. I could share my application details, but you still can't use it if you don't have my background. It's still not relevant. So you have to specify your background and ask folks questions, research, leverage the internet, research tools and platforms. So use Excel to really track your work. Create a folder where you can track your work. I was applying to multiple schools, applying to multiple scholarships, apart from Chevening and my grant assistantship award. I was pursuing other opportunities too that folks connected me to that I was tracking, but they became unnecessary when I got my opportunity. So you have to leverage tools and platforms. Then there was no AI. So I had to write all Mike probably can attest, my friend Mike, but then there was no AI to help you clean up your sentence. So I literally had to, now you can't really tell if the guy is right, if the person is the one writing the article or writing the essay or not because of AI and ChatGPT and all of that and Grammarly to clean up the sentence. Then there was nothing like that. So how you wrote it, that was how it's going to come out, or something. So use some of those tools you have now to clean up your work and clean up your emails and stuff. And then understand your career trajectory. One of the things I quickly realized when I was applying for opportunities and with assistant position was that, where do I see myself after this degree? What doors can this degree and this research opportunities open for me? And so thinking about that will kind of help you even before you start the research the position or get the scholarship, because it's going to tell you the opportunities you should be attacking. So when I was on campus, I was a teaching assistant. I was a full-time student. I was working for the radio station on campus because I could see 3 to 5 years from now, what do I want to do? So I wanted to have that work experience in America. This is not unrelated to the university. I wanted to work in America and do work with American professionals and show and demonstrate that I can do this work. I was volunteering for the local jail or local correctional institution through my local church. I was working for I was a student government on campus. So I got so many iron in the fire. I was also working with the university sort of law association because at some point I was nurturing some thoughts about going to law school, you know. So essentially, if you're thinking about your career trajectory, it will naturally open you to more opportunities once you get to America. Once you start studying, you're going to start thinking, what can I do next? What can this door lead me to? Some folks just come and they focus exclusively on their research, which is great if you're in the sciences. If you're a scientist, you're going to be researching throughout your career. That's fine. But if you're going to be doing impact work, you're going to be trying to make change happen. You're going to be trying to contribute to making the world a better place in terms of just societal public facing work. You have to open yourself to a lot of opportunities. And then, defining your career trajectory, defining your career objectives. I knew first of all I wanted to graduate to the 4.0. That was not negotiable from me. Like I'm like, you know what? I want to have A's in all of my courses. Terrible, terrible goal to have because I literally had no social life. If you want to put it that way, it was from work to work, from work to work, work to practice, practice to work, work to the radio station, radio station. I was doing only serious stuff because I knew that I want to take advantage of every opportunity this university gives me, or that I can take advantage of. So I was grinding for all of my courses. I want to have all A's, such that when I graduate, I am from the get-go. I'm very much like different from everyone applying because I my background, my experiences, and then the grade, that is just like flawless or something. So I really wanted that. So identify this objective. The second thing I wanted to do was I wanted to, and this is kind of critical, so it kind of leads on to the next things I'm going to talk about. Think about your life, and this is kind of early, but think about, do you want to, let's say you're coming in for a PhD program, a master's program. Do you want to stay in America and work after graduation? Do you want to do more studying? Maybe you're coming for a master's, you want to do a PhD. Do you want to return back to your home country to contribute? You have to think about some of these things right now, because if you don't, things happen the Western world, the way it works is it works in cycles. You have to start planning at least a year or two ahead of time for certain things you want to do. So if for instance, what, if I come and I finish my first degree, I want to do another degree. You have to start planning it like 3 to 6 months after coming to campus. You have to start applying to schools already. That is how early and far back you plan ahead. So I found that it was really helpful for me because I came to America in August. By October, there are some things that I already set in motion for the next summer. I'd already set some things in motion, like, I don't have all day, I don't have all time. I have 2 years for this course of study and 1 year for OPT. What do I want to do? That is how it kind of works in the Western world. So you're very focused and you're very driven, because that's what it takes to succeed. And then engaging with academics. My rule of thumb is just be yourself. One of the things I learned when I came to America was you don't have to be yourself. The more you try to sound very, very smart and very, very knowledgeable, the more people can't relate with you. So even if you're even if you're doing something very scientific and very intellectual, just try and people should be able to invite you for dinner or lunch and have a chat with you. That's how the American culture works. So when I came in, the second day I arrived in America like today. By Monday or Tuesday, I was having lunch with all the master students, most of the master students in my program. And they were not asking me, Friday, how smart are you? Or tell me about this complex issue. Tell me about yourself, Friday. Tell me about your background. They want to just know you as a person. And it's from some of those relationships that opportunities and doors open up down the line and down the road. I got access to many insights and many scholarships on campus. It's something I didn't talk about today. It's not just about the scholarships that takes you out of Nigeria. It's the scholarships you get in America. In fact, there are more scholarships on campus than you can ever imagine. There was no semester I wasn't getting extra scholarships on top of my normal scholarship. So it's when you're sociable with people and you can relate to people, and people know you. In fact, there was a scholarship I got. I'd almost graduated. They were like, Friday, you were recommended for this $500 scholarship. So here you go. So it's because of how you're able to relate with people and they see you as a human being. That's kind of important in some of getting some of these things. So you have to really engage with the academics. I say this jokingly. My first iPhone was given to me by my professor because we related. My first trip to the mountains of Wyoming for camping was my professor drove me up there. My first trip to the airport, I didn't have a car. America is a car culture. You need a car to go everywhere. Someone from campus said, Friday, hop in, let me drive you to the airport. They took me there free of charge. So many opportunities and things you would get is because people know you as a person and people like you as a person and people see that you're someone who's trying to do things that are good. That's my word on that. And then a word on V-servers. I want to talk about that because it's been in the news and it's all everywhere. In 2020, just after COVID, July 2020, July 2020, I can't tell right now. But when in the heat of COVID, you had this massive protest thing going on in America, the George Floyd protest. I was engaging with a few folks I knew in America over here, and I was like, "How's America?" I'm watching CNN, and everything seems to be chaos. It seems like every Friday, life is as peaceful as the river, at your backyard. Nothing is happening in my city. Everyone is just calm. The media always overblow and over exaggerate things because they want you to watch and they want you to pay attention and they're trying to give you the worst case scenario. The truth of the matter is this: 99% of international students who come to America to study and contribute to American society, who come to campus, stay on campus, mind their studies, and contribute to making the campus and their peers better, have no issues whatsoever. Folks like myself, I'm probably that 99%. I have never had any issue. I've left America like 2 times or thereabouts since I came in. I've gone to do things. I've traveled around the country. I fly all the time. No one has ever stopped me for any reason. So that's a note on the whole visa and news thing. The key thing you should understand is once you come in as a student, you're not an immigrant. You're a non-immigrant. You're a student. You're coming to study. And so you must demonstrate that when you're trying to apply. You're coming as a non-immigrant. You're trying to apply to come study, and your story should end there. Most of the challenge people have is after applying to a program, getting scholarships, they still cannot demonstrate that they are a student. And I say that is very important. The embassy in Lagos or Abuja, they've seen your paperwork, but they want to know, are you a student? Like, do you look like someone who's going to study or someone who's trying to go do something else? Again, it goes back to what I talk about the foundation: love for learning, passion for intellectual stuff. Are you drawn to intellectual things? What can you speak intelligently on any academic subject and people and love it? Or you just want to use it to just flip or something? So these are the things that would cause you to have visa issues or not. When I applied, went to the embassy, it's very straightforward. What are you going to do? I'm going to study. Oh, I can see you have a full ride scholarship. Yes, I do. Okay, great. Simple. So you have to be able to make sure that everything about you, your resume, where you've worked, who you are, is all saying, I love knowledge, I love learning, I love making things better. If you ask me, that has been the most important factor and determinant of my success in America. All the jobs I've had, all the opportunities I've had, all the things people have opened up to me is because I want to add value to people and institutions. So that has to be you. That is why I started out by sharing some very foundational things. If you think, I just want to leave Nigeria for just living sake and just go work in America, probably no. If you think, I just want to go to campus, study, but if you have a vision to say, you know what, I want to go to the Western world to study, potentially I could work for a while. I want to gain some experience and skills. I want to figure out how I can improve corporate systems or scientific systems or engineering systems or legal systems. I want to one day be able to inspire someone like myself with my background and teach them how they can rise from poverty and obscurity to a place of impact in life. I want to one day be able to help solve this particular problem. Then you are on the right path, you know. So that's my word on that. So I'm going to leave it there. I don't want to make my presentation too technical. my background is social sciences and arts. So I'm going to open up to questions. Ask me any question. My background. I mean, I'm probably going to hand it over to Victory and or Faith. You guys, one of you can probably just shepherd the conversation from here. Hope the insights I've shared have been good. But yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I have honestly been absolutely blown away. And hearing your story from how you started from Warri to Benin, I believe these are places that people can actually relate to because even me, I grew up in Warri myself. And when we get scholars, coming up to share how they started, going into very deep details on how they literally, were able to go global from the little city that they were in. It really just inspires a lot of us. And I really believe that a lot of our scholars, aspiring scholars could actually relate to that because yeah, there's a point you have to come to as an individual, especially if you're looking out for scholarships that that I need somewhere better than where I am right now. And really loved how you shared your story in very deep details and also really enjoyed the points you shared. I think you also shared a very good website talking about specific places that we could actually check out for. Yeah, so I think that's something that I would also love to share with the main group, at the end of the webinar. But yeah, thank you so much. All right, so we're going to be expecting everyone to drop your questions. I'm still waiting for us to drop our questions. Um, yeah, I'm still waiting for our questions. So while we wait for the questions, do you still have any few things you would like to share that you felt that, oh, I did not want to miss that one, so I could just go over
Yeah,
it. So,
yeah. One of the things I wanted to share is there is always, and I say this, since I came to the Western world, yeah, yeah, since I came to America and I've been here, I've had people reach out to me, whether that's via LinkedIn or personally, and say, Friday, I'm thinking of doing this that I can see that you've done. Can you give me some insights or read my essays or help me get this or help me do that? And the most important thing I think anyone who's trying to come here to study should think about is not the speed at which you're able to cross the border. And I say that because I would talk to my friends sometimes, or my family, and I say, see, I'm in America. I mean, it's America, yes, but the street is still the street. There are still trees on the road. Like it's a place. It's not heaven per se. It's a great place, and I love it here. But it's about you. So look at yourself. Look at your background, because many of us Africans and Nigerians, we're very inspirational people. We don't just know. When you look at your life, particularly if you have your first degree, do you know what it takes to go through the Nigerian system and graduate with a degree? Do you know what it takes? Like literally, what it takes to survive the ASU strike and your professors and the courses and the handouts and lectures and traveling on Nigerian roads, going to school and back with no accident and doing campus work, campus fellowship or campus association or leadership as student government. You've actually done a lot. So sit down, think about what you've done, think about where you would like to be, expose yourself up until today. I say this, I still listen a lot to Barack Obama, not because he's president or he was president, but because I'm looking at the person and I'm drawing inspiration for how certain things. So look at yourself, abstract yourself from the degree, because you will discover that at the end of the day, once you get that degree, the only thing it can give you is a job. It can give you a job and it could give you a paycheck, but it can make you someone who's driven by purpose. It can make you someone who is inspirational. And see, it is you being inspirational that makes people get drawn to you. I can't tell you how I got my current job. My they literally, I don't want to get into something that are very personal. The people I work with are inspired by me. I'm not just working for them. They're like, oh my God, we're so lucky to have someone with your story. So if you don't reflect on who you are and you don't think about your skills, think about what you can do, and you only focus on, oh, I just want to go, I just want to, and you're desperate, you find yourself, people who come to the Western world, you find yourself in a place that is like, it's not a place of dignity, it's not a place of respect, it's not a place that you're going to be proud of to showcase to the world. So that's why I say to people, work on yourself, work on your confidence, work on, because see, people are always going to know more than you do. It's not about knowing everything, but it's about getting yourself connected with resources that exposes your mind to a few things. I was in Warri last September, and I was able to interact with people that no one knew I was from America or anything like that, because I still have my Warri accent I can use if I have to. But I'm able to switch between countries and between systems and function very well. It takes a level of intelligence and a level of understanding of how the world works to be able to work with leaders in America, work with governments, and work with institutions, and then work with African societies and deal with the issues of no power supply, no roads, and political issues and difficulty. So I say work on yourself. This is what I'm going to say. Work on yourself. Work on your leadership. People who want to pay you to come study want to be inspired by you. They want to look at your background and say, this guy is smart, this lady is intelligent, and they're going somewhere. Let's join them. In fact, someone would say that these top scholarships, you get them because the folks can see that even without them, you're going to become something in life. Even without them. I can't say it's because of my company I work for, that's where I am. That's who I am today. No, even without my company I work for, I'm still very driving. I'm still very passionate. I'm still very forward thinking. That is what I think is most important. That is what will make you lastly victory. When you come to America, you will not have a inferiority complex. You would still be someone who knows their worth, who knows that, I am not just an immigrant, I am adding value. That is who I've always wanted to be. So
Amazing. Thank you. So I really love what you said about when a scholarship reviewer, I'm paraphrasing in the way I said, I understand, they see your work, they know that you can actually become something irrespective of whether you get a scholarship or not. And that's a very powerful way to convey a very like deep message to aspiring scholars, because sometimes we feel it's a scholarship that make us like that proves our worth. But the thing is that, like you said, like the scholarship reviewers, the judges, they can see that without the scholarship that you are going to get like creative things out of your life. So thank you. So if you don't mind, stop sharing your screen so that we could just have like a chart and then we'll get to, yeah. Okay, perfect. So amazing, amazing. Thank you very much. I have been very inspired. So we already have a couple of questions here, and I think we'll go with the questions first. So Essay is asking, how can I get a graduate assistant scholarship with an accounting background and work experience? I don't really have leadership skills or experience outside my work experience.
the first thing I'm going to say to that is everyone has a leadership experience and skills. It's how you position it. And so you have an accounting background, and you don't have, what is leadership? Leadership is not the title. My job title is community engagement specialist, not community engagement leader. So it's not the title. It's how you have been able. So again, it goes back to reflection. So get a piece of paper, get a sheet of paper. You have a degree. Think of anything good. It doesn't have to be anything that is good that you've ever done. Maybe you held the position as a financial secretary in your campus fellowship. I was president of Winners Campus Fellowship in a Kenwa campus for a year thereabout. Maybe you were financial secretary or assistant financial secretary, or you have one position on campus fellowship. Maybe there was an assignment, there was a class assignment where you did well. Maybe there was something you volunteered in. Like if you sit down and think, it was when I started thinking like, wow, so I was really back in fact at Warri, even though I never had a leadership position, I was actually part of youth mentoring and youth development through by collaborating with other young people. I mentored youths and I supported youth development by going to schools and sharing moral values and sharing leadership skills. That is huge. Nobody your age in America has that experience. I'm telling you, no one who is 17, 18, 19 in America, I live in America, I can tell you that, can say they've gone to schools to mentor other people. Whoa, that's huge. For example, think of your own experience just saying, I overcame this challenge or that challenge, and I was able to apply to university. It's about how you position that experience that makes you special. And probably that's what my background as a writer has helped me because I'm somehow able to frame my experience. I mentioned Michael's name because you probably understand is my fellow scholarship buddy. That you just nailed, I call it nailing the application. You're essentially telling them how everything you've done, no matter how small it is actually making change happen, is actually contributing to a better world. So my recommendation to you is you don't have to have any title. You just need to have some good things that you can talk about. Let me mention some casual things that I think everyone there can even must have done. You have overcome some kind of challenge to go to university, yes or no? Yes. You have overcome some kind of challenge to get a B or an A in a course, despite the difficulty of the course. That's something. You have overcome some challenge on campus to graduate. That's something. NYSC, you went to a small village or a small school, or in fact, that's leadership. That's a great experience. I don't put some. In fact, you get to a point in your career, you just have to let some experience. If I want to talk about my experience, oh my God, I don't think 3 pages would be enough. When I start talking about the things I did on NYSC, NFCS, National Christian Fellowship of Copper, something, something. I was the landlord there for a while, and I had a team of members. So when you look at your career and your life, and then you formally put structure around the experiences you have. So when I wouldn't just casually say, oh, I'll put some formal structure around it, make it make sense. And let me tell you, you don't have to be economical with the truth, be honest. But see, they would hardly go back and go call every single person in your life to verify everything you said. That doesn't mean you should manipulate the truth or lie, but it's about if you tell lies or you're not being, it's going to show in who you are. Like if you say I did this, it's going to look very empty. If it's not who you are, it's going to look like a very shallow experience. So that's what I'm saying. Look at who you are. Look at your work, and then let it come genuinely. One of the things I still ask myself, I'm going to wrap up now, Victor, is even till now, I still ask myself, Friday, what kind of a person do you want to be when you're 40, when you're in your 40s and your 50s? Like, this has nothing to do with jobs. This has nothing to do with money. Who do you want to be? Like, what kind of a leader do you want to be? What do you want to be remembered for? How do you want, what area of the world, one area, doesn't have to, that you would like to improve? Those are the kind of questions that would cause you to be genuine. You'll be sincere. And when you're right, you're going to see that you have a lot of experience. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And the truth with what you said, and when you talked about reflecting, I think that's one thing that I believe the scholarship application journey itself should actually help aspiring scholars to do, because if you want to think about like, oh, I don't have this one, there are a lot of things that you might not have, but you actually do have, because it's not as explicit like as you think. You talked about like, oh, you don't need to have like a leadership title itself. And you really gave the examples about like NYC. Like as you speak, I just mentioned like a couple of things that I did in my NYC that I didn't necessarily have like a leadership title, but because those things actually required me to like take up something like a leadership role and get to like make a change. The thing is that they want to see how you're able to change a problem, and then out of that problem bring a solution out of it. So if you're trying to think about, oh, you don't have leadership skills, I don't agree with that. You do have. I just believe that you haven't taken enough time to reflect on your journey, on the things you have done, because there are some times that we do some things and we just ignore that. That's nothing. Anybody can
Doesn't
do.
matter.
Anybody can. But it's not true. Not anybody can do it. So I believe if you take time to journal, reflect, right, just go back on your journey. Or what did I do in my undergraduate? What are the roles I took up on? What are the things that I actually brought out of those roles? What are the changes that came out of those roles? What are the solutions that I did in those activities? That is what they are trying to see in your application. All right. So
Yeah.
our next
Yeah.
question is from Chime. Chime is asking, when applying for a graduate assistant position, is it always required to send an email to the professor? Does this step give you an edge?
I would say yes. Now, I wouldn't say it's required to email the professor. It's not required, but it gives you an edge, yes. Because, and I administer some funds also for my company, so I understand it's interest. So if you think this school and this program would help you move your career forward, wouldn't you take out at least, it's like buying something from the market. Wouldn't you just go out and say, just give me a product I've never tested? You'd be curious. You'd ask at least one or two questions. So I would say if you email a professor and say, look at me, I have this background, I'm interested in this area, I'm interested in your research, that's huge because it shows that you are not just trying to, you're intelligent. You discriminate between this professor is doing what I not it's not related, this is not related, this is related. So I'm going to reach out to you to ask a question. So it makes a difference. And in the scholarship committee, they always have a scholarship committee or the admissions committee meeting. Folks who ask questions, and this is probably where, and I say this from a deep sense of humility, this is why I really knocked it out of the park in Wyoming. I engaged the admissions committee, the admissions office, so closely that before I came to campus, they were like, we already know this guy, from Nigeria, who is asking all these questions and very curious. And in fact, when they want to go to certain meetings, they would invite. So that's kind of important because emails are free. It doesn't cost you anything to email. Just look for their email, find it, draft a good email, add your statement of purpose if you want to, or your personal statement, add your resume if you want to. You don't have to. Make it brief. Hello, Professor, I see your work. If you send that email now, sometimes they may not respond, but I can tell you this, it strikes a chord. If someone emails me and says, Friday, I've looked at your background on LinkedIn or something, and I see the kind of work you do, and I'd like you to write a letter of recommendation for me because I think your work is related to my work in this way. Wow, I'm going to support that person. I'm going to make sure that they make it but if they're just casual about it, so that's my advice. It makes a difference when you email them.
Absolutely. And I think another advice I would also like to chip in is that don't be generic in your emails. Don't send the same email like over and over again to the same persons because I believe what they want to see because an email is a very like personal space. So they want to see the thoughtfulness that you would have gone through to want to have like a more personal like touch with them via email, which is actually a very good option. So ensure that your application or whatever you're sending in the email is really very well thoughtful and very well aligned to what, is being required of you and not like you're using the same format for literally like every single thing. It's a lot of work, but I believe if you want to get like better responses from your email, that is one thing to do. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Samson is asking a question. So I primarily did medical biochemistry although interested in water treatment, but I like research experience in this field. I'm not sure about how to go about application cycles, and closing. Is that
Okay. Yeah, I can see the question here too. Okay, so the first thing I would recommend is um give yourself a time. And so there's the fall and then there's the spring. The fall, I think you come to campus around August to September, thereabout in the US. And then there's the spring, which is January or maybe February sometime. But these are the two cycles of our application. Fall is the big one that everyone sort of aims for. And some programs actually have only fall applications. So pace yourself. So this is January, right? No, this is not January, this is November. So now is a good time to start working on applications for next August to really think through some things and work on some things. And now your question is, you lack research experience in this field. This is my experience. This is my experience. If you have a first degree, you have a first degree, and you did anything research related with that degree, harp on that, expatiate on that, show the admissions committee that you've thought through about that little research experience you have. You would like to build on that experience. That's what your personal statements is for and other optional statements too. So you don't have research experience, but you have some research experience, some kind of research work. Guess what I did? The research experience I really harped on was my project, my final year project I did in 2015. I researched about viewership patterns of student of mass comm students on international channels, something. So I really I went to pick my project again. I looked at that project. I looked at the data I collected. I looked at how I was able to analyze that data. I looked at the findings. Okay, I said, okay, so how does this help me build a foundation for a master's degree research? I then said, you know what? My first research, I had this sort of background. Now I hope to build on this experience by understanding how X and X plays out. So my point is build on what you have, build on the little experience you have. Now is also probably a good time because it's probably very close right now, but look for an opportunity to conduct an independent research. So what do I mean by an independent research? On your own, figure out a research that you can do on your own. So on my own, I've started a YouTube channel on my own before. On my own, I've started a YouTube program on my own. It shows that, so I can't say, you know what, I didn't have media experience, but I started my own YouTube channel. I started my own program. So figure out something you could do that could help sharpen your research skills on your own. It might cost you money, might not cost you money, but again, we all have this. We're Nigerians now. We're strivers, we're pushers. We don't give up. We look for opportunities to make ourselves better, and we look for opportunities to make our work better. So don't give up and say I didn't have a research experience. Sometimes it is that your little experience that would make sense to that professor and say, I like the drive of this person. I'll give them an opportunity. I like the initiative of this person. I'll give them an opportunity. Lastly, on that, you might not have that core research experience, but learn about it and tell the school that that is what you're interested in. So your background is you're interested in water treatment and you have very limited research experience. Tell them, go online, go to Wikipedia, go to YouTube or something, and learn about water treatment research. Learn the basics, and then email a water research professor and say, this is my background, I'm interested in this area. Mention a few concepts that you know at a very high level and say you would like to go deeper in those concepts through the master's program. You see the idea? So that's it. That's my advice.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really love how you talked about like building up the experience now, even if you don't really have it yet. Um, Samson is also asking a follow-up question from the last question asked. To guarantee fully funded placement, which is best to apply to a master's or a PhD?
That's a great question. I want to urge everyone here, you would do me a favor even if you apply to the University of Wyoming. And I'm going to give you a little secret. Apply, just go to the University of Wyoming later, look at their website. They have a lot of graduate assistantship opportunities for master students and PhDs. I came in as a master student, I got funding and stuff. So go to that university. And here is the kicker or the catch rather, that many people don't understand. If you aim for Harvard or Stanford or Yale, those top famous universities, it's great and I support that. But the applicant pool is very competitive because it's a top program. And you might be very smart and you might get it and might get in there and get funded. But sometimes target those niche programs that are in specific states. And I'm going to give you the states: Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, those western states, Montana. You know why? Those states are natural resource rich. They have oil and gas, they have other industries that fund their public education system. So they have a lot of scholarships and a lot of funding because the government funds those universities. So the kind of scholarship opportunities I got, if I probably would apply to probably University of Texas at Austin, I may not get it. I may have to pay some things out of pocket. But the University of Wyoming is an oil-rich state, and it has the lowest population in the entire country, and it's an isolated state. The university is very isolated in a very small city, so they like to get as much students from outside of the state and outside the country to apply. They attract a lot of students from India, from China, from Nigeria. I met lots of Nigerians doing PhDs and masters at the university. So aim for those programs because those programs are likely to give you full funding to get you there. And I say that I like to give you full funding because it's important. If you do a little conversion of $1,000 to Naira, you understand why full funding is critical. You know, what it takes to pay out of pocket. It's very expensive. to pay out of pocket. And so if you're able to get that same education with the scholarship, it's good. So aim for those universities. I don't know if I answered your question. Yes, you would get full funding with both. At the University of Wyoming, PhDs were much more guaranteed. If you're doing a PhD, it's almost guaranteed you're going to get full funding. Like it's almost guaranteed because the idea of a PhD is that you're being trained to be a researcher, you're being trained to be a scholar, someone who's going to dig deep into a specific subject matter and figure out something new. You're going to be studying and experimenting all day. So they know you're basically a gift to academia loves people like you. So there's always going to be full funding, full graduate assistantship funding for anyone doing PhDs at the University of Wyoming. At least I'm probably 80% sure of that. So
Awesome. I think we missed the other one you said. You missed your Wyoming and which other one again?
um okay, the University of Wyoming is the university in the state of is a state university. I mentioned some states also. North Dakota. Check out the universities in North Dakota
I think
or South Dakota
you might
or
type
South Dakota. Okay,
you
let me
might
type it.
thank
Sorry.
you. We could
Again,
just
I'm a
put it on
yeah,
the
I'm a journalist, so I know some of these things because I'm a journalist. Forgive me.
thank you very
So
I bet it's
let me
already
just
asked.
drop it in. Yeah, let me drop it in. Let me drop it in the chat. So South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming. In fact, I encourage folks to. I knew folks who I was talking with them when they were in Lagos or Ibadan. Actually, I had a class. I was second year, was first year. It was in Ibadan. We're chatting and talking, and the next year I came to the University of Wyoming to do the same master's program I came to do. So North Dakota, South Dakota, and then try Montana. Go look at the academic departments of this school. They may not be very prestigious, no, but if you're good at what you do, they likely have a lot of fun. They have funding. That's what I've discovered. So check out these states. Um, Also, as far as cost of living goes to in America, one of the things you would learn once you come this way, if you go to a big city, a state as like New York or Chicago or something or Illinois, those places are very expensive. Those places are very competitive, and those not like you can't make it, but it's like competing with five good people, competing with 20 or 30 very good people. Even if you are good, because the pool is so wide, anything can happen. So that's one of the things you look at too when you're looking at scholarship. Where can I get the most scholarship opportunity with the least competition? Because it's not personal, but they have bunch of students applying from China and India and Pakistan and you know Asia or something, Africa, other parts of Africa, Ghana. So
Mhm.
these universities are really good. Yeah,
Thank you. I think there was also a link you shared at the beginning. Do you mind dropping it on the chat
yeah,
so put all of them on
yeah.
the YouTube channel and it's easy to access?
Let me drop this link. This link was literally it's a lifesaver for me. See, when I was doing my own research, because it just made things. Should I drop it on the YouTube or the
On
Zoom?
the Zoom is fine. Our volunteers will put it on the will
Okay.
put it.
So use this website to search for schools and programs. You
Okay.
know, I didn't have time to go into that, but if you search for, let's say, Masters in Engineering or something, or MSc Engineering, it will give you some of the programs that have MSc in Engineering, and then you can then go to the departmental website. Okay, I didn't also share this. Don't go to admissions first. There's a reason for that. Go to the departmental website. Admissions is for the whole school. Admissions is for everybody. The department are the folks who you will be working with personally. All the funding I got were from my department, not from the university. So my department, I didn't talk about it. They paid for my flight. I think they almost paid for my visa too or something. Because they had some funds that could be used for that. And they told me even when I was going to, that if I graduate and I was going to return back to Nigeria, they would pay for my flight too. They had some funds that were nested in the department. So you don't get some of those funding because they can't give that funding to everyone in the university. So it has to be specific programs that receive specific endowments and specific gifts. And this is the reason why those are kind of how the Western world is different. Now, as I grow in my career, even if I'm not asked, a time is going to come. I'm going to say I want to donate to my department because I've benefited from that system. The system has given me the opportunity. That's how that the Western world, they know that as they invest in you and you become a success, in future, the alumni network would invest in other people having the same experience. So that's why they do some of those things they do. So check it out. And then folks who are curious about my departmental website, again, it's open knowledge. This is my departmental website. You can check it out. I dropped it on the Zoom chat. And then folks who want to look at my background on LinkedIn a little bit, they can check it out if they want to.
Yeah.
And you can see some of the work I've done, because sometimes I tell myself, if someone who knew me when I was in Warrior, you tell them I'm doing this work in America, they would never believe. No, no, no. Friday? How come? But when you see the pictures, it tells you that it's possible that someone from Warri and the University of Benin can influence American leaders and influence how they think in America. It's possible. We are not backward Africans. We have something up here. We can add value to this system. So that is one of the things that's one of the reasons I always post about my work. I want to inspire people from Nigeria and Africa that you can do this. You can do it. So
Thank you so much. And I also wanted to apologize to every other person. Like, I know we've really focused so much on Nigeria, because we actually have about 2,550 persons from 26 countries in the bootcamp. So apologies if you feel secluded. Yeah, this is actually, you know, for persons who are looking for research assistants in the United States, and it's obviously not for Nigeria alone. And yeah, so we're sharing the links on the chat. So please be on the lookout to get them. I think Abdul is asking a question. Just to clarify, I said I missed the earlier part of the session for this graduate assistantship. Am I applying to the university directly, not through any scholarship?
yes, yes. Graduate assistantships are internal to the university. There is Chieftain, which is the UK government's leadership development sort of award for emerging leaders in former British colonies or something. There is Commonwealth, which is kind of the same, Commonwealth countries, you know, and I think there are others too. Once you get into the scholarship world, you begin to see a bunch of opportunities. In fact, let me share this little, let me see if I can, this is a gift to everyone. Let me see. As we go along, I might share this. There's a website I found recently that has a bunch of scholarship opportunities. So but graduate assistantships are internal. They are very internal. That's why you email the department, you call. In fact, I tell folks actually call them sometimes. They might pick up because it's not as expensive. If you buy a 500 naira or something airtime, you can actually talk. I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I would call my department and call the international student office and ask some questions. And they're like, oh, this person does not just email, they actually call, is confident enough to speak. So that is also something that would make you memorable. Like the more memorable you are, the more you would even get with. If you tell them, if you're admitted and funding is your problem and you're memorable, the school would even look for opportunities for you to get you there because they're like, this guy is so engaged, this person is so committed, they're very interested. How do we help them in their academic pursuits? They would refer you to scholarship opportunities. So I'm going to share a link as soon as I can to some extra scholarships I found recently. There's a web page, but it's pretty hard to dig through some of these things. But let me try. you know,
Yeah, we're literally like at the end of the webinar, but it feels like we shouldn't stop. So we're going to add additional 10 minutes so that we could get to address some other questions as well. Um, yeah, this question is about exactly what are the stages to get a research assistant position? Because I know most of the emphasis have been about application. So we're just wondering, are there like interview stage, like recommendation letters, are there other stages that are required from this, or is it just the application? You just apply and then you appear in the US?
typically, I've not had anyone go through an interview, but
Okay.
some departments might conduct an interview. Um, Again, it's not a, it's from my experience, it's not a job interview. Like you're not trying to, you're trying to come study. So you're not the most polished, perfect professional out there, particularly if you're trying to go, you're trying to just you want to go into research after probably working maybe 2 years or 3 years experience. No one expects you to be polished and perfect, but some very, what's the word, competitive programs might say, you know what, let's have an interview with the applicants. But again, the interview is, if you've done the things I talked about at the beginning, reflect on yourself, work on yourself. And I say that because that is what's going to make you more. I don't need all the interview that I do interviews. I don't really prepare that hard for interview. I just know what I need to talk about, and I'm myself. And if you like me, you give me the opportunity. Did not, good luck. So you will sweat it if you know how to talk about who you are, what you have to offer, and what you want to do with your life. Like you don't have to pretend. So that's my recommendation. Even if they have an interview, you can actually crush it if you are honest and you tell them about what you want to do. But typically, it's your application. Your recommendation letters are also very good. So I use my recommendation letters from my professor. Two of my professors at the University of Benin. These are professors that know me as this guy that was very driven to contribute. So if you've been someone who was never engaged on campus or you never liked studying, it's going to be hard to get them to write something. They might write it for you, I don't know, but it's going to be hard for them to put their credibility on the line for you. Or if you had a boss, or if you left all your places of work in a very negative manner, I'm not saying that things don't happen. Things happen everywhere. That's why people move from jobs to jobs. But try your best to make sure that can still laugh or smile with your previous folks, because they might ask for those letters. It's okay, give us one letter of recommendation from one place you've worked and from probably campus. That's kind of important. I got letters of recommendation from my boss in Lagos, and it's like Friday, so that really helped a little bit. So that can also tilt the scale. But I think on the whole, they're very busy people. They deal with lots of applicants. These professors have their own career and their own things to do. They want to just get the best applicants and move forward. So most times they will not have an interview. That's my experience.
Amazing. Thank you very much for clarifying that. So a question I would like to ask, I think you've touched it at the beginning, but just to reemphasize for um our aspiring scholars here. We understood that you got the chef name and then you rejected it for the US research assistant. Why exactly did you reject it? Because anybody that wins the chef name, they're like, oh my God, this is like a dream come true. But you literally got chef name and then you went ahead to go for a research assistant position. Why is
The,
that?
the, the, the reason I did that was because I knew where I'm going to. And I said that with a sense of humility. One of the questions, again, I said this, one of the questions you have to ask yourself at every point as a leader, what makes you inspirational? And people tell me, I speak to, and I say this with a sense of humility. I don't work with anyone from Africa in America. I work with all Caucasians, people who were born here, who've lived all their lives here, people who are leaders in industry. One of the reasons that they are drawn to you as a leader, as a person, is because you are not the external things don't make you. You're strong as a leader on your own. So when I got this Chibnall Award and I got my graduate association award, I knew that I had something to offer the world. I became, again, I'm also a person of faith. I kind of knew like this is about destiny. This is not about showing off on LinkedIn. I'm a Chilean scholar, or showing off on social media that I got this award. This is about what would I do? How do I make an impact in the world long term? And I thought very long term. I think the way I run my life is very, very long term. I don't think of 2, 3, I think 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road. What kind of a leader I want to become? I figured coming to the US, I wasn't thinking graduate assistantship all my life per se. I was thinking of this as a platform to gain skills, contribute, and move on to the next. And the next is probably what I'm doing right now. People don't come from Nigeria and come to the kind of work I'm doing at Next Step. It doesn't happen. Look at my profile on LinkedIn. You don't just do it. You don't come from Nigeria, from Lagos, and automatically start leading economic development work and administering loans and talking to senators. And there must be a bridge. And then I knew the kind of change I wanted to make. What kind of change do I want to make? What systems do I want to improve? What kind of a legacy do I want to leave? And so when I thought about these questions, the US, coming to the US made a lot more sense long term. Short term, it felt like a loss. But long term, I tell folks right now, I'm married, I have two kids. I'm I contribute to Nigeria as a person, not just by words, financially right now. I make people's life better in Nigeria because I'm here. I create platforms and opportunities for others to rise above also. So once you know what you want and you know where you want to get to in life, it becomes easy to turn things down. You know, I live in a small town called Hayes, Kansas. I don't want to go live in Chicago, for example. Why do I want to go live in Chicago? It's a big city, traffic jam. I like my life the way it is, and I can make the kind of impact I want. So it's very personal
Mm,
because if you make it's very personal, very nuanced. And I'll give an example of my friend. Lastly, the friend who introduced me to scholarship opportunities, I actually traveled before him, but he knew what he wanted. It's like, Friday, I know taught you the scholarship thing. Now you're traveling before me, you know. But it wasn't about rushing to travel. It was about he knew what he wanted out of life, and he's gonna wait. I think he deferred his scholarship for a year or something. And I went ahead. So it wasn't a competition of who was gonna go ahead as fast. It was the phase I was in my life and my career. And I just like when I emailed the folks at Lagos, the Chieftain office in Lagos, I'm like, the phase I am in my career, the phase I am professionally in my life, this made sense long term for me. So
amazing.
that's kind of where it is. So
Yeah, thank you very much. We have a question from Essay, and then we'll ask a final question and we wrap up. Essay is asking, can we apply for the program, gain admission first, and then look for professors for the graduate assistant, or do the three stages simultaneously?
the earlier the better from my experience. So funds kind of sometimes from departments, funds kind of run out. And so sometimes some folks will be offered admission and they'll be told there are no scholarships because we've actually exhausted the pool. So sometimes the earlier the better. So I would say if you can, if you if you can apply simultaneously if you can, because sometimes depending on the school, they make the decisions at the same time. They don't admit you first and then the assistantship later. Sometimes they do it that way, but I'll probably recommend at the same time. But again, my knowledge is it's not a graduate assistantship application is not rocket science. Like it's not that complicated. You have your statement of purpose or your personal statement, you have your resume, you have your recommendation letters, and then you have your statement of research or your research interest or what you want to do, and it's like a page. And then probably you have some addendum or things you want to demonstrate. So you can actually get that ready and then inquire about graduate assistantships from the university and say you're interested in this. This is your research area, and it aligns with X and X professors. When can I apply? In fact, they would think you as a very proactive person when you think of that. So my recommendation is apply as early as you can and do it simultaneously.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I believe this has
Mhm.
been a very, valuable session for every single one of us that has, attended. So we're going to be wrapping up with one question, and we usually ask this question to our scholars. What is that final advice that you would give to an aspiring scholar who is still on the fence and still trying to see if, this is a shot that they could actually give, especially like applying for research assistant positions in the United States based on your experience?
The first step is give yourself time because I know it might seem as if life is running away from you. Oh, if I don't apply by January or February or March, it's over. Sometimes give yourself that 1 year plan. Make sure your personal statement is being refined and refined, that it's actually very punchy. You know, work on your resume. Make sure your resume is saying, "Hey, I'm an achiever, I'm a doer, I'm a leader." Work on your recommenders. Tell your recommenders some of the things they should say. Because sometimes if you don't, I've had folks who would come to me and say, Friday, I'm interested. When I just came into the US, all of my folks who knew me because they thought it was a joke. I was in Lagos. I'm like, next week I'm traveling. I'm like, oh, it's Friday. Come on. I'm like, I'm not really traveling. So the next week they saw me in America, and I'm like, you didn't tell us you were going to go to. I'm like, yeah, I told you. You never believed, right? You never. It was like a. But the key thing when they started asking me for tips. I said give yourself time. I started working on this almost a year before, around August, September, the previous year. So it's not something you just rush into in 2 months, and you develop. The more you reflect, the more you work on your resume, the more you work on your research idea, the more you think of your post-graduation job or your post-graduation plan, and the more you leverage resources, the more you become more confident. Sometimes you can tell. I was watching, I think it was Mike's president. Is like he knew he wasn't going to get the scholarship the first time. He knew like this time they're not going to give it to me. When you're ready, you kind of know. So sometimes give yourself time. That's the most important thing I'm going to say. Some of you are watching this. You're going to apply this year. You may not get in. You may not get in for the next quarter. Don't give up. Pull yourself back. Gather yourself together. Start preparing early. What are the issues that caused me not to get accepted? Why didn't I get the scholarship opportunities? Research more universities. Ask some very intelligent question. I'm willing to answer some questions if you send me a LinkedIn message. I may not have the time to meet with you, but answer some very thoughtful questions. Ask people who are. I remember I was talking to about three persons who are abroad. The first was in Netherlands, the other was in the US, and I think one was in the UK. And I was asking them questions, but you have to do the work yourself. And then once you're ready, you get to a point. I'm saying this, you get to a point when you land, when you get to the UK or the US, it doesn't feel like it feels like you know you've earned it, kind of. You know you've done your work. You don't feel like, oh, it was just luck. You've done your homework and you become very solid. And that is the way you're gonna come here. You're not gonna feel like you're less of your peers. People are very smart in universities. You're dealing with very smart, ambitious, forward-thinking people. If you're not well cooked, if you find yourself in class, you will shrink. Like you won't be able to engage because you've not worked on yourself. So that's the key part. That has been the most defining factor in my success. Working on yourself, understanding your strengths, your weakness, your aspirations, your goals, what makes you special, what are your shortcomings, and then being able to present that to the graduate school, and then they will be so inspired by you that they say, you know what, we're going to do anything it takes to get you to come down here to come study. That is what makes you special as a person trying to go to grad school. Otherwise, you'll be trying to meet up. They should be meeting you at the point of your greatness, not you trying to meet them at the point of your smallness. That's my final word. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. So, keyword, they should be meeting you at the point of your greatness, not at the point of your smallness. Yeah, thank you so much. Can we say a very big thank you on the chat to really thank Mr. Friday for pouring out his heart entirely to us. For the moment you started sharing your story, I was like, it's about to get down. And just, took us step by step, like literally every step of the process. And I personally was inspired because it also made me reflect on my own journey, getting to realize that from a small place, you can actually like still think global. You don't have to wait till it actually happens. Before it even happens, you already lived it in your mind like a million times. And then when it finally happens, you're not intimidated by the reality of it, happening to you. So thank you so much, Mr. Friday. Can we drop the thank yous, please? Samson is saying thank you with a lot of exclamation marks everywhere. And yeah, our volunteers here are saying, well, they say what an amazing session. Thank you so much, sir. Yeah, thank you very much. We're really so inspired and grateful to hear your journey. All right. Samson is saying thanks a lot for this session. Yeah, thank you, Samson. Yeah, so we're literally about 10 minutes. Oh, wait, behind time, but it's fine. I think we still got value from this. But I will quickly share my screen to just share the next steps from us. Don't worry, for those of you that might not be able to like catch the live, we'll drop the links on the chat by the time the live has actually gone on. Or the main YouTube video, we'll drop the links there so you also get to see what has been talked about and so you don't miss out on anything. Awa is saying thank you so much, sir, for this for the enlightenment. Essay saying thank you, Mr. Friday, for this wonderful session and insight. Oria Day is saying thank you so much, sir. So thank you very much. All right, I will quickly share my screen and take us through the next steps of this bootcamp. Can you guys see my screen? Yes.
Yeah, it's still loading.
Yeah, it's still loading on my end. Okay. Sorry, just 1 second and I will let me try it again. Good. All right. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much once again, everyone. Like it has literally been a huge journey. This boot camp has been a long time coming. We literally started on the 21st of September, if I'm correct, and then we're literally wrapping up to the end of the boot camp. So tonight is our 5th webinar of the boot camp, and this is week 9. My goodness. Of the bootcamp. And our next webinar will be holding on the 30th of November. And that will be week 11, webinar 6. And it's our final webinar of the bootcamp. Yay! The grand finale that we've been looking forward to is actually been a journey, from week 1 to week 2, and now we're in week 9, and very soon we'll be in week 11. So week 11 is going to be like a very highly packed section. Like that is a session that we're bringing, 3 top scholars to come speak to us, and then they will also be going deep dive on specific areas of the scholarship experience itself. So our usual time is 8 p.m. West African time. So ensure that you are already going to be notified on YouTube. So all of our webinars have been holding here on YouTube. So ensure you go to the live section and just click on notifications so you are aware when we go live instantly. Our first speaker is Good News Agare. He's an Alan and Nesta Ferguson scholar. I think he has also gotten about 3 other scholarships as well. I think the Commonwealth shared and another scholarship. So yeah, these are scholars and toppers of the scholars that we have, that we're bringing to you. And you'll be speaking on scholarship application red flags and how to avoid them. So you'll be going very in depth on that topic. I'll be speaking on how to discover uncommon and unpopular scholarships for about 30 minutes. And then David Meinkel, Commonwealth Master Scholar, will be talking about building resilience in your scholarship application journey. And we'll be wrapping up with a Q&A session and ending the bootcamp with that session. So it's the grand finale you don't want to miss out, because we're having 3 unique scholars coming to speak to us, so take note of it. Remember, it's holding on the 30th of November, not next week. As usual, every single webinar of the bootcamp has been holding once in 2 weeks. So one Sunday in one bi-weekly Sunday. So just ensure that you are aware of that. And yeah, so this is like a flyer to just show us how far we've come. We've literally had all of these amazing scholars come speak to us, and yeah, it's a journey that has been very, very incredible. Even I myself, I have been really inspired by the stories. Getting to see unique angles, getting to see their unique perspective. It really just makes the scholarship journey like very, very comprehensive. So if you have not had a chance to go back to the webinars that they've hosted or they've spoken about, please, they are all on our YouTube channel. Just make out time to go check them out, read them, listen to them over and over again, and don't just listen. Ensure that you actually implement what is being taught. And very soon we'll get to celebrate you as a scholar, because these are the kind of works that these scholars did to get to where they are. So we're rooting for you, and we can't wait to have your face on the screen talking to aspiring scholars and sharing your own journey and your own story. We also have a couple of resources available for every single one of us. We've actually learned a lot about gaining clarity, all the things to do, the areas to focus on. Now it's about time that you actually get to implement what has been taught. So we're making a couple of services available for you to, get started on your journey. So we've talked about personal branding as to be the personal brand as an aspiring scholar. And to help you do that, we have a LinkedIn optimization service where you get to have let me share the next screen. You talked about we give you insight on how to build a powerful headline, how to optimize the keywords on your profile, how to write a very engaging summary, and how to customize your work experience, how to showcase your skills, and also even give you like a customized URL for your LinkedIn profile. We also have a section where we actually take you step by step on how to do all of this. And it's a service that is going to last from now till the end of December 31st. So right now we have £20, $20, sorry, $20, 30,000 naira in Nigeria price for you. It's usually about 50,000 naira, $35 in price. So we're going to be offering a service to you if you're interested in building your LinkedIn profile very well to ensure that you get to attract those opportunities you're looking for. For example, the last webinar we had, one of our scholars talked about how LinkedIn was, the way she actually built a profile on LinkedIn was a really good way that literally made her to win one scholarship. Like, for example, she won two scholarships, which was the Erasmus Mundus and the Commonwealth Shared. She talked about how like she was one of three persons in the whole of Africa that was selected. And she actually mentioned that her LinkedIn was one of those things that played to, her portraying herself. Who knows? Because these reviewers, they go to your LinkedIn channel, they go to your social media and in general to just try and see how does your experience truly align with what you're written in your essays. So we're offering this service for you to just get up to speed and straighten your application even as you're sending out your essays itself. All right, we also have the 3-in-1 scholarship clarity kit. So this is a very unique one because we have an opportunity for you to review your essay. And what we do is that you have three key areas for reviewer. We have the scholarship essay review, we have the personal statement review, and we also have the CV review and optimization. So these are three things that are going to help you to review, provide insight on, provide feedback on, to ensure that it actually helps you to align with the scholarship that you're trying to apply for, to ensure that you're telling your story in a very clear and compelling way, and to ensure that your CV is not like a list of bullet points. You're literally writing a very compelling story in your CV, and it actually relates to what you're targeting. So our usual price for this is 54 pounds. Again, these are very, very subsidized. I won't even lie. And for the sake of this bootcamp, we're going to be offering just $27. Sorry, I keep calling pounds. It's dollars, not pounds. $27, and that is 40,000 naira for this 3-in-1 scholarship clarity kit. Again, this offer ends on the 31st of December. We're literally making this as affordable as possible so that anyone that is still trying to, like, you're still on the fence, you're trying to figure out this out, this is like the best place to get to offer and to get started. And then we also have the ultimate scholarship application bundle. The usual price for this is 200,000 naira. That is $134. But for the sake of this bootcamp, to just make it as accessible as possible, we're making it $67. That is 100,000 naira. And what's inside the bundle? You're going to get scholarship essay review. You get 2 revisions for 3 different scholarship, guys, like 3 different scholarships. And then you also get reviews for your personal statement, and you get insights on how to share your story in a way that connects with judges and reviewers. We are also giving you access to a CV review and optimization, where you get to clarify your achievements on your CV and make your application stand out. Again, like, this is literally like, we're just giving you, let me not say free because you're paying for it, but we're literally giving you at the cheapest rate possible. You can go check anywhere else. You won't see this price, I promise. And again, it's actually ending, the discount is ending on the 31st of December. So you only have like a very limited time to assess it. And there was one I didn't get to point out. So we have this scholarship essay review for one scholarship. So if you're like, oh, okay, I'm not sure I can afford any of them yet, you can start with one scholarship essay review package. So this one is you get reviewer for one scholarship essay. And what we get to do is to help you to ensure that you get in-depth feedback and actionable steps on how to make that particular essay review, fit the aligns to the scholarship, requirements itself. So the normal price for that one is $20, but for the sake of this bootcamp, we're giving a discount of $14. Again, guys, this is literally going to end by the 31st of November. I promise. Like, by next year, we're not going to offer all of this because we're literally making it as accessible and as cheap as possible. And just to point a very important disclaimer, we're not helping you write the essays. We're actually helping you to review the essay. Emphasis on review, because I don't want someone to come and then say, oh, you are writing for us. No, it clearly states review. So please ensure you already have something, written for us to review. We're not writing it for you. So please take note. And again, this is a very important discount that is going to end on the 31st of November. By the first day of January, every single price you're seeing here on the screen is going to double up twice the amount. We're going to be sharing the link to the seller page on our WhatsApp, on our social media handles. You can actually reach out to us via our email at 𝐀𝐍𝐍𝐎𝐂𝐈𝐄@gmail.com to, go ahead to make inquiries or to make a purchase. We have a seller account that will be shared on our WhatsApp groups. And please do ensure that you have any questions. We have WhatsApp admins on the WhatsApp groups. Ensure you reach out to them. Don't reach out to anybody else so that you're not being scammed or nobody will take advantage of you. But yeah, I hope this helps and that you will be able to get started, implement what you've learned and actually take action from the webinars, the stories, the insights that we've gotten from the bootcamp so far. Again, like this is literally very, very cheap and very, very accessible to every one of us. All right, so I'll be wrapping up finally by thanking you for being with us. Like I said, it's been a really long journey, but I really believe you got something out of it because remember we have accountability girls, beginner, intermediate, and achievers. So we've done a lot of activities, aligning your scholarship priorities with each of those groups. So we hope you've gotten something out of those groups. And this is actually the first edition of the Scholarship Bootcamp by 𝐀𝐍𝐍𝐻𝑒. And incredibly, we have about 2,556 scholars registered from 26 countries, which is really so, mind-blowing. And since this is our very first time, we're looking for ways on how to improve and how to serve you better, how to make, serve your needs and, just get to ensure that you're getting the value that you signed up for. So we have a feedback form that we are going to be sharing on the WhatsApp groups that we've already shared on the WhatsApp groups. So we are strongly encouraging you to please fill up the form, tell us your thoughts, or tell us the things you liked, the things you didn't like, the areas you would like us to improve on, the areas you'd like us to do better on. Like that will really help us to get to ensure that the next edition is more comprehensive and you find it more valuable than what we're actually seeing right now. So please take our time to fill out the feedback form on the WhatsApp groups that will be shared. It will also be shared to you on your emails as well. So please just give us the feedback. It's going to help us to, help you get better in your scholarship application journey. So with that said, I believe we have come to the end of the bootcamp. All of those things I've shared right now on my screen will be here on the WhatsApp group. So ensure you're actually registered for the bootcamp for you to get access to the paid services because we're making this mostly accessible to those who have registered because by the time we get to announce it outside, we know that there will be like a lot of inflows because of how very cheap and accessible it is. So we are trying to make it as community accessible first than bringing it outside because by the time we bring it outside it's going to be double the price. So ensure you take advantage of all of that. And with that, we have come to the end of the bootcamp for tonight. I hope you've gotten as much value from tonight's session and we would love to see you next on the 30th and our next webinar. But ensure that you are engaged on the WhatsApp groups to get the best out of the bootcamp. But with that, we would like to end tonight's session. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.